The Void Dragon on Mars. Beneath the surface of Mars, in a deep canyon system, something ancient is sleeping. The priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus have built their entire civilization on top of it. So what is the Dragon of Mars, and did the Emperor put it there on purpose? The lore keeps the exact answer a secret, but the facts are just as chilling. Long before the Mechanicus existed, the Emperor defeated a godlike entity in combat and locked it away under the Martian soil. Most clues point to this being Magladroth, the Void Dragon, one of the most powerful star gods in history, with total mastery over machines and the material realm itself. The evidence is hard to ignore. The creature's skin looks like liquid mercury, just like the living metal used by the Necrons. One of the dragon's secret guardians claims the Emperor did it to manipulate the future. The theory is that the sleeping god's dreams leaked into the minds of early settlers, subconsciously pushing them to worship technology. If that's true, the entire religion of the Adeptus Mechanicus was a tech tree planted by the Emperor to make sure humanity had the weapons it needed. Fans are divided on what this means for the future. Some think the dragon is just a dangerous prisoner, while others believe it's a biological engine used to power human progress. But everyone agrees on one terrifying thought: the dragon might be just sleeping, and having 10 billion people pray to the machine god every day for 10,000 years is exactly the kind of energy that might eventually wake a star god up. King in Yellow Endgame. Somewhere in the warp, in a pocket dimension, a figure called the King in Yellow has been assembling an army for 10,000 years. So who is the King in Yellow, and what's his endgame? According to Dan Abnett's Bequin trilogy, the king operates through the Cognidae, a secret organization that mirrors the Inquisition in structure but answers to entirely different masters, using chaos as a tool rather than a curse. His singular, obsessive goal is the Emperor's true name. In the forgotten tongue of the language of creation called Enuncia, a true name is the ultimate leash. To hold the Emperor's name is to hold absolute dominion over the most powerful psychic entity in existence. The new king's resources are the stuff of fever dreams. Operating within the warp called the City of Dust, he commands a golden warfleet and thousands of winged Astartes. His ranks are bolstered by clone nulls, each a vessel for a bound demon. He is a threat so absolute that 6 traitor legions and 5 Eldari craft worlds have put aside their hatreds to see him destroyed. To the Inquisition, he is an extinction-level event. The breaking point arrived at the end of Penitent when a decoded cipher revealed a name that shook the foundation of the lore: the first Captain General of the Adeptus Custodes, Constantine Valdor, the Emperor's most loyal shadow, who vanished after the heresy with a final cryptic whisper, "Only in death." The theory that has gripped the community is split down the middle. Either Valdor has spent 10,000 years building a forbidden army to save his master by any means necessary, or his Apollonian spear, a weapon that reflects the objective truth of every soul it pierces, showed him a reality so horrific that it broke his loyalty forever. The final chapter of this trilogy is still unreleased, and the new king's endgame casts a long shadow over the 41st millennium. Krork and Brain Boys. In the olden days, the Old Ones were facing extinction by the C'tan and Necrons, so they created the Krork, the most terrifying biological weapons the galaxy had ever seen. The Krork helped turn the tide, but the Old Ones died out before the war's end, leaving their weapons behind to figure out what to do next. According to Orc legend, their creators were the Brain Boys, or ancient beings of extraordinary intelligence who encoded all their knowledge into Orc DNA before vanishing. The dominant theory is that these were the Old Ones themselves. However, an older tradition suggests the Brain Boys were actually a tiny, brilliant Orc subspecies that was eventually overthrown and devolved into modern-day Snotlings. Either way, the masters are gone, and the Orcs have been running without a manual for 60 million years. The Krork were what happens when orcs hit their absolute peak. Ancient records describe them as 12-meter-tall giants wielding technology and psychic power strong enough to battle gods. The orcs of the 41st millennium are what the Krork became after millions of years without a war worthy of their potential. The central mystery is whether this decline can be reversed. It is a known fact that orcs grow bigger, smarter, and stronger the more they fight. A war of sufficient scale produces monsters like the Beast, a warlord who nearly destroyed the Imperium and proved that orcs can still scale to terrifying heights. The question that remains is whether a war big enough could cross a threshold, triggering a genetic reset that turns the orcs back into the Krork. The lore has never confirmed that this reverse evolution is possible, but it has never ruled it out either. The Tyrant Star. In the Calixus sector, a dark shape appears in the sky, and whenever it shows up, a world begins to die. So what is the Tyrant Star, and why can't the Imperium figure out how to stop it? In the Inquisition's secret files, it is known as Comus. It usually looks like a black dwarf star that eclipses the local sun, bringing earthquakes and total societal collapse in its wake. The Inquisition has been hunting for answers for over 100 years, and they've found that demons are afraid of it. Even the monsters of the warp back away from Comus, which throws every standard theory out the window. The mystery started in the Dark Heresy records, centered on a prophecy about the end of the human race. It gets weirder with the Harlock family, a line of rogue traitors whose last survivor went insane and actually used an ancient artifact to step inside the Tyrant Star. Whatever he found in there changed him. What came back out looked like him, but it wasn't human anymore. Some think Comus is a massive shard of a Catan, a star god that feeds on the psychic screams of dying planets. Others believe that the Tyrant Star is older than the gods themselves, something from a time before our galaxy even had a name for evil. The Imperium has marked the Tyrant Star as an active threat. It has appeared 18 times in the last century, and every single time the result is the same. Some planets fall to cults, others just go dark, but none of them ever recover. The Outsider. Known as Zaranoga, it's one of the last true Catan, the ancient star gods who shattered the galaxy during the War in Heaven. During that war, the Eldari laughing god, Segarak, tricked the Outsider into devouring its own brothers to gain their power. The plan worked too well. The minds of the consumed gods survived inside the Outsider's throat, howling and fighting for control, fracturing its sanity forever. The laughing god made a permanent enemy, and the Outsider became a horror that even other star gods feared. It fled into the intergalactic void, drifting south beyond the galaxy's edge. Over millions of years, space debris clung to its immense body, burying the god inside a hollow, dark planetoid. It sits there still, and the few Imperial explorers and astropaths who have picked up its signal went mad. The Eldari fear the Outsider more than almost anything else in the universe. For a race that has fought literal demons for millennia, this fear is unique. It isn't about the Outsider's physical power, but its mere presence. As they say, just looking at it is enough to break you. The big mystery is whether it is asleep or if its waking nightmares are already bleeding across the void and corrupting the edge of the galaxy. An ancient 5-million-year-old prophecy warns that the Outsider will eventually return. Tuska Daemon-Killa. Most beings who end up in Khorne's realm are just trophies on a shelf. Tuska Daemon-Killa is an argument that hasn't finished yet. So who is Tuska, and why did the Blood God decide to keep him? Tuska was an orc warboss who realized that demons were the only things in the galaxy that gave him a real challenge. He led his army straight into the Eye of Terror, just to find a better fight. He eventually crashed on a planet ruled by a massive demon prince. Tuska was pinned to the ground, dying from a dozen wounds, but he used his final breath to drive his power claw between the demon prince's legs. Khorne was watching the whole thing. He was so impressed by Tuska's sheer guts that he decided he didn't want the fun to end. Now every single morning in the realm of chaos, Tuska and his boys are resurrected to fight all over again. By sunset, they are wiped out by Khorne's elite generals. By dawn, they're back on their feet. This is almost unheard of, as Khorne doesn't usually keep pets. The fact that he chose to preserve an entire orc warband instead of just taking their skulls shows that Tuska did something that broke the Blood God's usual rules. The big mystery is what happens to all that orc energy. Orcs get bigger and stronger every time they fight, and the warp is a place where psychic power becomes reality. If Tuska's boys are fighting and dying in an endless loop in the most psychic place in existence, they might be leveling up in ways the galaxy isn't ready for. The darker theory is that Khorne is actually building a battery. He might be farming Tuska's endless rage to create a weapon that he can eventually point at his enemies. Tuska can't win his daily battle, but he also can't be stopped, and in the 41st millennium, a soldier who never stops is the ultimate weapon. The Rangdan Xenocides. The Great Crusade has campaigns that history celebrates, and then 3 wars aren't in the records at all. These were so catastrophic that the Imperium chose to cut them out entirely. So who were the Rangdan, and why has no one been allowed to ask? The Rangdan Xenocides were fought at the edge of the Halo Stars. What started as a simple scouting mission turned into a galactic nightmare that required 9 Space Marine legions to fix. At the height of the conflict, over 300,000 Astartes were on the front lines, 19 star systems were completely wiped out, and the losses were so heavy they weren't topped until the Horus Heresy. The Dark Angels took the worst of it. Once the largest legion, they were butchered down to a fraction of their size, losing their top spot to the Ultramarines. Entire fleets of Titans and ships went into the dark and never came back. The Rangdan themselves are a total mystery. Fragments of reports describe them as tall, lean, fox-like, and dangerously smart. Their technology was so advanced that it nearly pushed the Imperium to collapse. After the final war, the survivors were sworn to silence. Tainted worlds were abandoned, and the Dark Angels formed a secret order just to study the Rangdan in case they ever return. The most popular theory is that the Rangdan was a weapon sent from the Ghoul Stars, a vanguard for something even older and meaner. There's also the mystery of the 2 lost legions, the 2nd and the 11th. Both vanished from Imperial records right around the time of these wars, leading many to believe they were corrupted or completely broken by what they saw. The Ghoul Stars. Also known as the Ghost Stars, they are a void region beyond the eastern fringe and a graveyard of dying suns where the Emperor's psychic light barely reaches. The aliens that inhabit the Ghoul Stars, like the Scythor Fiends, don't make sense to Imperial scientists. They are described as supernatural, behaving as if they belong to a universe with completely different laws of physics. The Death Specters chapter stands a permanent guard at the edge of this region, and they never talk about what they see looking back at them from the dark. The most terrifying event in the region's history is the Pale Wasting. In the 34th millennium, something crawled out of the Ghoul Stars and began eating its way through the galaxy. The records are almost entirely scrubbed, but the fragments speak of a star-spawned plague and nightmare engines that wiped out entire sectors. It took the lives of 11 Space Marine chapters. The survivors never recorded what they actually encountered. Many fans believe there is a direct link between this place and the Rangdan Xenocides. If the Rangdan were the monsters that nearly broke the Great Crusade, the Ghoul Stars might be the place they were running from. The pale wasting suggests that whatever is back there just went back into hibernation. Thanks for watching until the end. Click here to check out another video and see you in the next one.